Welcome to another episode of Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts. I'm Steve, and this is Rick.
In my dreams.
Oh, nightmares, right?
Tomato.
Okay. Hey, now, last a couple of weeks, actually, we were talking about the global flood. And Noah, where are we going this week?
I want to talk about worldview. And yes, archaeology impacts worldview. And what I mean by that is basically in the Western world, our world, there's two worldviews as to how we got here and what it means for us today, and it shapes the way we think about things. There's, of course, the God made us, and the Bible holds the history about that worldview. That's our worldview. And so we look at things through that frame of reference. Mm-hmm. Through the lens of what the Bible says, we interpret data for today,
yes,
and history for today. Then there's the competing worldview of evolution. Basically, evolution says, from nothing came everything. It took a lot of time, but it finally happened. It just did. The evolutionary worldview is, the universe blew up, and somehow life formed from that, and from goo, eventually to you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
You're welcome. So if that model is our frame of reference, it only makes sense that when humans were young, we would have been less evolved, mm-hmm. less capable, less intelligent,
yes.
And now more evolved, more mm-hmm. capable, more intelligent. But when we look at the data outside of the Bible, just the historical and archaeological data, we do not find ancient man being primitive. We do not find him being less evolved. We do not find him being less intelligent or less capable. In fact, ancient man did things, we still don't know how he did them. So that doesn't sound like less intelligent to me. If anything, it sounds like more intelligent.
And what you're basing this on is anthropology, paleontology.
And archaeology. That's our thing.
That's what I'm saying.
And talking about ancient man and modern man, from a biblical frame of reference, Adam and Eve were the ultimate human beings. They lived before there was even a sin nature. Mm-hmm. So the way I look at Adam and Eve, they were healthier than us. They were smarter than us. Their gene pool was non-diluted, mm-hmm. non-polluted.
Yes.
They had everything the ultimate human being can have. We are thousands of years removed from them. We've been reproducing. We've been disease-ridden. Mm-hmm. We've been sin-ridden. Mm-hmm. I don't think ancient man was less intelligent and less evolved than us. I think we've devolved, mm-hmm. and ancient man was more intelligent. And I think the evidence bears out the biblical worldview, not the evolutionary worldview.
Yes.
I don't think we grow in intelligence over time. I think just the opposite happens.
Right.
So we've got all sorts of data. Some of it's from the Bible, some of it's from just history, from archaeology. Give you some examples. I'm in Genesis chapter 4, and here's what it says. Cain lay with his wife, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Enoch. Cain was then building a city, and he named it after his son Enoch. Okay, so the idea is ancient man crawled out of the mud, dropped down from the trees, and started living into caves. And over time, became conversation. Cave paintings became works of art. And man became so intelligent that they started to build crude teepees and huts and mud-thatched houses. And then over time, big cities. Mm-hmm. But according to the biblical record, the earliest of man already had cities.
Yes.
There was no thousands of years of developing.
Yeah, this is second generation.
Exactly. And they're already building cities.
Yes.
So,
and remember how long they're living. I mean, we got to keep this in mind. This isn't a 80-year-old person who dies when they're 80s or 70s or whatever else, or even 100. We marvel at somebody living over 100.
Yes. These people were pushing 1,000.
Pushing 1,000 years old.
So if you were 500 years old, you could have children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, great-great-great-great.
And be healthy and be sharp.
And learning from each other and working together.
Running 500 miles a day. You're in shape. You're ready to go.
Everything was different.
Yes.
Their intelligence was different. And they were multiplying like rabbits. But the thing here is, one of the earliest records that we have in the Bible says that the earliest people had cities. And so my point is just the worldview thing again. It wasn't from trees to caves to tents to thatched houses to eventually we developed into cities. No, we started with full-blown cities.
Right.
It wasn't like oog became language. Adam was talking with God the day he was made.
Right.
He was born with language.
And the very first act he's given to do is to name the animals.
Name the
which
animals.
means it's intelligent speech.
Could you name all the species?
I couldn't,
I
but
couldn't
I
either.
didn't claim to be intelligent. So,
If I had Adam's job, let's see. Giraffe, horse with long neck. Elephant, big fat mouse.
no, I mean, but think about it though. This is intelligence.
So Adam and Eve's first child built a city. Let me read some more. To Enoch was born Irad. To Irad was the father of Mehujael, and Mehujael was the father of Methuselah, and Methuselah was the father of Lamech. Lamech married two women, one named Ada and the other Zillah. Ada gave birth to Jabal. He was the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock. So we've got cities coming first,
Yes.
tents coming after,
That's a great point.
and raising livestock. Again, the idea is hunter-gatherer.
Yes.
Hunt down the woolly mammoth, try to survive, eat a few nuts, and maybe you'll make it. Earliest man already had animal husbandry.
Yes.
This blows people's minds because of their worldview. But if you think about nature that you see today, it's impossible that Adam and Eve could have just talked. Well, it's only impossible if you don't believe in God. But in my neighborhood, there are these wasps that go into the mud and build houses out of them. How did they learn how to do that? They didn't learn. They just know.
Yeah.
How did Adam learn how to talk? He didn't learn. He just knew. How did they learn how to build a city? Maybe intelligence. They thought about it and worked it out. But with animals like bees making hives, these big, beautiful hives, termites making mounds. You know, termites cool their mounds and bees cool their nests or their hives. Birds migrate. How do they know to do these things? So in the world that we observe, unintelligent animals and even bugs make highly sophisticated building structures. Birds weave nests with their beaks.
And their social structure
And social structure.
is very complex.
It is very complex.
So to think that the first parents and then their children didn't have a social design in mind or inherent that God told them how to do this.
So the biblical worldview is the obvious worldview. It's the one that bears up with the evidence we witness on a day-to-day basis. The evolutionary worldview is when you have to sit down, try to throw out the evidence, and make up a whole new pile of evidence
That's
to
right.
fit the picture that you're drawing on a cave wall.
Well, I can tell you already what has struck me in this episode is that the cities came before
The tents.
the tents.
Who knew?
Yeah, I like it.
All right.
Well, it makes me a lot less tense thinking about this. So,
I'm so pleased to know that.
yes, let's continue.
All right. So his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all who play the harp and flute. So from the earliest of mankind, we have animal husbandry, we have city, we have musical instruments, stringed instruments, and wood instruments. Verse 22, Zillah also had a son, Tubal-Cain, who forged all kinds of tools out of bronze and iron. Tubal-Cain's sisters, Naamah, bronze and iron. There was no Bronze Age, Iron Age. It is true that most of the stuff we've dug up from civilizations, they had a lot of bronze in one age and more iron in the other age. But the idea isn't they eventually discovered, they went from stones, then they figured out copper, then they figured out bronze, then they figured out iron. No, this guy in the Genesis was already working with iron. Most people don't know this. Do you know where they got their iron from? Because iron doesn't, you just don't go around and find it in hills like you do copper. They, at least not initially. They got their iron from meteorites. Now, how cool is that?
It's very cool.
Yeah. So basically, ancient iron tools are made from meteorites.
I did not know that.
Welcome to Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts, where you learn stuff.
But metallurgy already within a couple generations.
Yes, with iron.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing. Not just copper, not just bronze, but iron. That's not the picture we get. We get Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, and now the Industrial Age and the Space Age. No, they've got it all wrong. The early man knew all this stuff. So much for a Stone Age, so much for a Bronze Age, so much for an Iron Age. Metallurgy was birthed during Adam and Eve's lifetime. I've got this chronological chart that I want to share with everybody. This is the people in the Bible and their lifetimes and how they overlapped one another to show who knew who and how these things developed. So even if this was 4 or 5 generations past Adam, Adam was still alive, is the point I'm trying to make.
Right.
So during the time of Adam, there was iron. There were cities. There was metallurgy. There was musical instruments.
You don't think about that during the time of Adam and Eve, there are cities being built.
Exactly. You just think of Adam and Eve in a garden. They die.
That's
and
it.
Humanity.
Yeah.
But that's a non-biblical worldview of the Bible.
Yeah. They're naked. They're waiting for the first Levi's to come out. And that's
That doesn't happen until the priests back in Exodus.
That's why they're called the Levi's.
That's why they're called Levi's.
I love it. All right.
Actually, that's true, though. The man who invented them was Levi Strauss. He was a Jewish man with the name Levi. So the pants we wear are biblical. They're holy.
Usually mine are holy, actually. But.
All right. So I told you musical instruments were made. Metallurgy was made. We actually have, in the archaeological record, ancient musical metal instruments. You would think, based on a worldview, they'd be very clumsy, very primitive looking, but they equal anything that could be made today. I have a picture. Let's take a look.
That's amazing.
These are extremely ancient. They're like from 5th millennia BC.
Really?
So these date back to the origins of post-flood. This, if the dating is right, goes right around to the time of after the flood. But if the dating's wrong, they could be from before the flood.
Wow.
But since they were found in a cave, I'm going with after the flood.
But look at the
detail.
Yeah, the detail.
These are beautiful.
The
these
artistry
are
really that goes into these.
Could you see anybody doing better today?
No.
This is as good as it gets, and they're at least 7,000 years old.
That is absolutely amazing.
From the Cave of the Treasures down by the Dead Sea near En-Gedi.
So our view of ancient man is radically is wrong.
It's wrong.
It's very wrong. It's skewed by the programs that are put out by organizations that are secular minded.
Yep.
They don't think that God's a part of the equation.
Nope.
And that man was created, that he evolved.
No. And we need a program like Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts, even to help believers get the frame of reference right.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And get back on track with what the Bible says. Okay, so to get back on track again, we're just going to go away just for a few moments. So don't you go away. We'll see you when we come right back.
GLC invites you to visit us on our Facebook page at facebook.com/GLCTV. Here you can stay in touch with all of the latest GLC news along with daily scriptural inspirations, current specials in our bookstore, links to our newest shows, and online media, plus articles from trusted sources. Feel free to drop us a message or a question by posting to our page. Please help us out and like our page by clicking on the thumbs up button. Don't delay, drop by the GLC Facebook page at facebook.com/GLCTV. We want to interact with you today.
Welcome back to Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts, and we're talking about a very, very cool topic. To me, we were just talking about the Cave of Treasures. Just the name.
Fascinating.
Right? Mysterious. And Cave of Treasures. Wow.
Yeah, and they discovered these ancient instruments that date back to prehistoric times. Well, not just quite prehistoric, but...
No, because we have the history in the Bible.
Exactly. There is no such thing as prehistoric times. Again, the way we look at things.
It's true.
So one of the things, as I've mentioned previously, the idea was man dropped from a tree or crawled out of the mud, lived in a cave, developed a tent, developed a city, so on and so forth. I want to talk about cavemen for a minute.
Okay.
This whole concept of cavemen. People have lived in caves in the past.
Sure.
People live in caves now.
There are man caves today.
So nothing has changed is my point.
No.
In those caves, they found paintings. You know, on the bridges and signs in Tucson, you find paintings. They're graffiti artists. Does that mean that they were put there millions of years ago? Why is it that we have to assume that because somebody painted in a cave, it must have been a half human, half, animal hybrid? Where does that come from? This idea that Neanderthals were part human and part animal is ridiculous. And it's ridiculous based on the evidence. Now they know that the Neanderthals could paint. They had tools. They had jewelry. They had burial practices and customs. So why don't we just call them people?
They could have been in New York. I mean, come on.
They're just people.
Right.
Oh, well, because their bodies look different. Well, my kids are pushing 6+ feet. Mm-hmm. You go to some parts in the world and people are lucky to get 5
That's right.
something feet.
No, that's true.
It doesn't matter that they look different.
Right.
They're just different people. It's a worldview thing.
Yes.
As to the cave paintings, I've got one I want to show everybody as an example of a Neanderthal cave painting. You'd look at something like this and say, wow, that's really primitive.
It's primitive, but Steve, I have to tell you, that's better than what I can draw.
Exactly.
No, I'm serious.
No, same here.
Yeah, I'm not an artist.
How is it that you can see something like that and say it's primitive in the sense that the person wasn't capable of doing better?
Right.
But that doesn't mean the civilization didn't have a person who could do better.
Right.
I'm thinking the guy who lived in the cave probably wasn't the brightest in the bunch anyway. Otherwise, he'd have had a house.
The next door neighbor is doing paintings.
Right.
It's going, will he ever learn?
I live in the desert, and I'm trying to figure out why more people don't live in caves. We have to pay hundreds of dollars a month to air condition our houses. But if you live in the ground, the earth will cool your house.
And there's a movement of people building homes under the ground.
It's smart, especially in a place like Arizona. There's no earthquakes. Mm-hmm. I mean, you wouldn't want to do that in Southern California.
Yeah, it could be. Well, it'd be your fault if you did it.
But I do have some pictures of modern cave houses. I want people to take a look.
Wow.
Now, who wouldn't be comfortable living in a house like this? There are cavemen today, is my point.
Yes.
And I would consider people living in caves today pretty smart.
Yes.
Because they're saving money.
Mm-hmm.
In the hottest of environments, you're cool. In the coldest of environments, you're hot. In Tucson, if it's 110 degrees out, you can go into a cave. We have a cave in the city that's kind of a touristy place, and it's like 55 degrees or something like that in there.
Oh, nice.
Right. It's 110 outside. You go a few feet into the ground, and it's like in the 50s. It's crazy. And it works for heating, too. You can be in Minnesota. It could be, 5 degrees out, but you can step into a cave, and it's 50 degrees,
wow,
which is a lot warmer than 5.
It is.
A lot easier to heat.
45 degrees.
At least.
At least.
All right. So I got some series of pictures to help with the worldview talk. Frame of reference. Talk about primitive. Let's take a look. This is an elephant. Now, if you take a look at this picture, what would you say for primitiveness versus modernness?
I would say that there are modern day cartoons that have almost that exact drawing.
This drawing is from a sidewalk. This is chalk art. It's graffiti.
I would be right.
It looks just like cave art, though, doesn't it?
Of course.
No, hardly any difference at all.
No.
Actually, cave art looks better. Let me show you a bison.
Oh, wow.
From inside of a cave.
Now, that could be on a modern day cartoon.
It could, but it's ancient. Isn't it beautiful?
Yes.
It is so well done.
It is.
Now, if we're talking about, ancient man, primitive, couldn't paint well, and you see something like that, you're like, wow, that's really good. Mm-hmm. Now, take a look at this painting. Tell me how well that was made. That must have been made thousands of years ago when man just learned how to draw.
My art classes in my past, that's what I have done right there.
Well, that's one of the most famous artists of the 20th century. As you probably know, that's a Picasso.
Yes.
So you look at the bison in the cave, put it next to a Picasso, and you tell me which one is not fully mentally developed. And people will pay millions of dollars for a piece of that Picasso art. So the worldview says, these cave drawings, because they didn't know how to paint yet, Picasso, I guess, hasn't learned how to paint yet because his are far inferior to the cave drawings.
Yes.
Now, we talked about musical instruments. We showed you some from the Cave of Treasures.
And they were amazing.
So we have pianos today.
Mm-hmm.
Is this more superior? Is this light years beyond what they did back in the Cave of Treasures?
No.
No, not at all.
Not.
It's just a musical instrument.
Right.
It's amazing. It's awesome, but it's not like different.
No, it's a hammer hitting a tight string, which
That's
makes
all
a
it
noise.
is in a big box.
That's it.
All right. Now, we talk about things like this. Oh, by the way, I want to show you another modern instrument just to, again, mess with your worldview. Look at this. This is a guy wearing metal on his chest, and he plays it. So if you were to look at that instrument versus the instrument in the Cave of Treasures, which would you say came from modern man, highly developed, versus ancient man? My point is this. Our worldview that man started out ignorant and slowly progressed to intelligence and refinery over time is fully and completely wrong.
Yes.
It's very similar to the problem in paleontology. They draw these pictures of bone layers, and then they date them by millions of years. And they say, well, if you dig down this deep and you pull out a bone, it's got to be 10 million years old. But in the real world, out there in the dirt, those layers do not exist. It's like this. It's all mixed together. On one layer high, you can find what they call the oldest of bones. And on the lowest layer, you can find a man's footprint right next to a T-Rex's footprint. The picture they draw doesn't fit. The picture we believe about ancient man compared to modern man doesn't fit. Listen to what Proverbs chapter 6 says. The mocker seeks wisdom and finds none, but knowledge comes easily to the discerning. Stay away from a foolish man, for you will not find knowledge on his lips. Probably the most amazing piece of ancient technology in my brain was when they found a 2,000-year-old battery. We've got a picture. Here's an outline of how it works. You notice it says asphalt stopper, iron rod, unknown electrical stuff, electrolytes inside, a copper cylinder, a vase for support, asphaltum, and copper zinc. This is a battery.
Now, how old do they think that is?
2,000 years old. So they actually dug up some of these that go to the time of or predate the times of Jesus.
A battery.
Yeah. Now,
That's amazing.
to think that little bunny was running around playing the drums 2,000 years ago just blows my mind. And
It
that's
keeps
where the
going
Easter bunny
and
myth came
going.
from, by the way. So why did they have a battery 2,000 years ago? Could you imagine?
Now, that's a good point. Not
Uh-huh.
just that they designed a battery.
Right. But
But
what was it
used for?
So here we are 2,000 years later thinking we're brilliant because we have batteries powering our gizmos. And now we found that 2,000 years ago, they already had batteries.
Yes.
That means they had them,
Yes.
they lost them, we rediscovered them and think we discovered them.
You know what? This is helping me understand Genesis. The idea that there's ancient technology that has designed a battery tells me and reaffirms to me ancient tradition that says that when Eve reached up and pulled it off the tree, it was an apple.
Oh, man. Oh, man.
You have to be able to power it somehow.
Oh.
It makes sense to me, Steve. I get it.
You're right. And the apple led her to hell. That's all I have to say. Okay. So you're an archaeologist.
Yes.
You're digging in the dirt. You find this thing. You take it back to the laboratory. You analyze it, and you say, well, I'll be gobsmackered. It's a battery. Why? They don't have the answer to the why yet. They don't have what it was used for. They found several of them. Prevailing theories, there's two of them. One was for medicinal purposes. electroshock therapy. Not in the sense to fix your brain, but in the sense of like they have found people using electric eels to add impulses to people to stimulate the system. So one of the theories is it was used for medical purposes.
Okay.
Possibly.
Yes.
Another theory, you ready for this? Electroplating. Which means
Really?
our historians, our scientists, our archaeologists recognize that ancient man, 2,000 years ago, used electroplating. I thought that was a modern thing.
That's amazing.
It is amazing. And almost everything we come up with is not invented, it's reinvented. Improved upon, because we're not stupid, we're highly intelligent. What we have is the accumulated knowledge of people.
That's right.
And enough food and peace to put them to work in a better way. Modern man is highly intelligent. I'm not trying to play that down at all.
Sure.
What I'm trying to do is debunk the theory that ancient man was unintelligent. If anything, he was more intelligent.
At the time of the Tower of Babel, at the time of Nimrod, God said, is there anything man can't do?
Exactly.
If they work together. I mean, that was the context.
And the pyramid is still sitting there.
Right.
That thing is ancient.
And the Sphinx.
And the Sphinx. I don't know how old the Sphinx is. Is it as old as that pyramid?
Some consider it to be a couple thousand years older than the pyramids of Giza.
Holy cow.
Yes, exactly. There's a lot of ancient
Holy
tradition. There's a lot of ancient tradition, but this idea of the battery being 2,000 years old.
And that's the one they found. Who knows? In a few years, they might find another one 1,000 years older than that.
Right.
I mean, we don't know what we don't know. And that's your brilliance for today.
Okay, so you heard it from Steve first. We don't know what we don't know.
And there you have it.
So if there was anything that you could hang on to for this week after watching Rock, Shovels, and Manuscripts, it's that fact. And what else you don't know, we'll try not to tell you next week. And we'll see you then.
This episode was produced by and for God's Learning Channel. If you're enjoying this series, your financial support will help us keep this program on the air. Simply send your contribution to God's Learning Channel, P.O. Box 61,000, Midland, Texas 79711-1000, or log on to our website at www.glc.us.com and donate using PayPal. Please be sure to designate which program your contribution is intended to support. Thank you for helping us make unique quality programming a reality.
Order your copy of this program from the GLC bookstore by calling the numbers or visiting the website on your screen. Please include the program number when ordering.